Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to another episode of Playing Above the Line. I'm your host, Alan, and producer Carrie. We've already had a lot of fun with this next guest, and we haven't even started recording yet, so I'm excited about today. With us is Shana Jordan, and she is the owner and director of Oyster Shell Strategies. And so, Shana, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's just jump right in. I mean, this is a leadership podcast, and so I'm just going to start by asking a simple question. What makes a good leader?
Well, I've thought about that a lot because I'm like, God, I don't even know if I feel like I'm a good leader. People tell me I am, but I think so one of the things I do think that being a leader is something you're born with, not easily developed.
Okay.
So that was one of the things I didn't check off. But I think you can develop leadership skills, but I really do think it's a certain personality person that is a good leader. So I think the thing that's helped me the most is leading by example. I get in and do everything that I ask other people to do. One, because I want to show them how to do it right.
Of course.
And then two, I think people respect you more as a leader when they know that you're willing to get in the trenches with them. I think that's the biggest piece to being a leader is leading by example.
So talk a little bit about your position as a leader now with Oyster Shell Strategies. I mean, it's your own business. So talk a little bit about your team and what you do at Oyster Shell, and then kind of how that came about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So March will be our second birthday, and I wanted to be different. There's a lot of people in this market that do what I do, which is marketing and event planning. So it's like, how can we be different? So I really wanted to build a team around experts in the different fields. People always have that goal, but I really sought out people that are good at event planning. So I have a director of events, and then I have someone who used to do fundraising for a college. And so I looked for these things that people at other agencies weren't necessarily offering as much. And so that's kind of how I built my team. So I have, we have an assistant, and then we have a director of events, and then we have a director of development. And then we also have people that are on our social media and content team.
Okay. So fairly small team, which you guys then obviously work very closely together because you do everything.
Sometimes too close.
Yeah. So talk about a little bit about what what you look for in a good team member. What makes someone easier to lead, maybe, and get them pulling in the same direction. Do you have a thought on that?
You have to be a good listener to be on our team for two reasons. One, I don't want to have to repeat myself.
Fair enough.
Okay. Two, we do not have time. Honestly, we are so very busy, which I'm so very blessed to be that busy. But if you don't hear what someone says at the first time, well, chances are we're not going to say it again. So everything is really tight and turned around, and there's a lot of detail work, especially in event planning and event management, that you really have to take down all the details and listen and be very cognizant of everything someone's telling you. And I'll tell you, I find that people have a hard time listening. They truly have a hard time listening because in their head, they're already thinking about what they're going to say or do, come back at you. Not in a bad way, but to respond. And so I'm like, just take a minute. You don't have to respond immediately. Just take a minute and digest what we're saying, and then let's figure this out. So listening, I think, is one of the things that we look for in a team member, and being flexible. While we have a director of events, sometimes she has so many events that we're having to do the events. So being flexible and being able to jump in and help each other with their jobs is key, because we're a small team. So everybody's working on almost every project.
So be a good listener, have good listening skills, which I think would include active listening, right?
Yes.
And I would think that in your line of work, it's important for you to exercise that, because the worst thing that could happen, I would imagine, is if you're trying to plan an event for someone, or you're trying to plan a marketing strategy for a client, and they tell you what they want, and then you give them something that's 180 degrees different from what they said. That's probably not a good thing, right?
Right. Well, one of the things I have actually learned is even listening, sometimes you get a different picture in your head from that other person. A friend of mine always talks about this. He's like, okay, picture a small dog. So the picture that I have in my head is going to be totally different from the small dog you have in your head. So even listening, sometimes you have to take it further and making sure that you really paint the picture of what someone wants. So to be a good leader, you have to make sure you fully paint the picture of what you're looking for or what your client's looking for.
I like that.
Because you're going to use that, right?
I am, because I'm sure that my dog, which was a little black Shih Tzu, was not.
Mine's a Yorkie, because my mom had lots of Yorkies. So that's So see,
that's a good example.
Both small dogs.
And so also you mentioned patience. So
Yes.
Expand on that a little bit.
So this is something I very much had to work on because I'm not a very patient person. So throughout the years, I have learned that to be a good leader, you really have to be patient, because if you're overwhelmed or something's not done right and you're upset about it, how you react depends on how your team's going to react. So if I get upset about something and I blow my lid, do you think they're going to be able to continue what they're doing on the same pace as they should be? No. They're going to be reacting to my bad reaction. So I've really had to learn to be more patient. And then I've also learned that there's more than one way to load a dishwasher, so to speak. Does it really matter at the end of the day how this is done? If it's done properly and to the satisfaction of the client, it doesn't always matter how it gets done. So just learning those things throughout the years. One's age. I'll say I've gotten more patient as I've gotten older. But just also learning that everyone's not like me, which was hard for me to.
You make a good point, because I think that we can agree that there are different ways to accomplish task number one, but there are different ways to lead. And my style's not necessarily yours, but it doesn't mean that mine's wrong and yours is right, or yours is wrong and mine's right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. So I would imagine, and I don't know that much about marketing and event planning, but I would think that there can be some kind of stressful times when you have a lot going on. You have 15 balls in the air and trying to make sure everybody's taken care of and all the lists are taken care of and whatnot. So how do you motivate your team to continue to kind of pull in the same direction when you're in the middle of chaos, when there's a lot going on, you got clients calling, asking questions, asking you to do things? What does that look like?
Motivating a team is not all the same. What I have learned is for each person, they have different motivation. They have a different style.
Yeah.
And so I have to communicate with them in the way that motivates them. So some people like, appreciation and words of affirmation. And then some people like me to take them to lunch. It just depends on what that person needs. So I try to fit to each of my team members. But positive reinforcement. That's how you motivate people. And even if I'm like maybe telling them they didn't do something right, or I was a little disappointed in something they did, I back it up with, but this was great. It's always positive reinforcement. Just like a child, just like a dog. You have to give that positive at the end. So I think that's the best way to motivate people is, one, find out what motivates them. If you do those personality tests, you'll see people are motivated by different things. So find out how that person is motivated and then just do it. It's sometimes just like really little things. Like I said, like taking somebody to lunch, or just I wrote a thank you note to one of my employees the other day because she did an amazing job. So just little things.
And that circles back to listening and communication, because there's no possible way that you'll know what motivates your team unless you're paying attention, right? And you're listening to kind of the feedback that they give you, either verbally or the way that they act and respond to situations and that kind of thing.
True.
So talk a little bit about staying on your team. The importance, I think I know your answer, but I could be wrong. The importance of making sure that they know the purpose and the vision of Oyster Shell Strategies.
Yeah. So I have a business coach. And that's one of the things that, he helped me with in the beginning is like, what is your mission? What is your purpose? How are you going to communicate that to whether it's your team or whether it's to clients or whether potential clients, groups of people? And really, all in all, it's very simple. We do marketing and we do event planning. There's very few things under those umbrellas that we don't do. We don't do weddings. Never. And under marketing, we do everything. So when someone says, well, do we put out posters? Like my team is like, hey, they want us to put out posters. I'm like, of course we put out posters. That's called grassroots marketing. So I forgot the question.
Well, while you're thinking about it, I do want to circle back to the whole weddings comment.
I'm also ADD.
So have you had a bad experience with weddings, or is it just something that you would, I hate look.
I do not want to be responsible for someone's biggest day of their life. I just can't even imagine. Knowing that I'm not a really patient person, I just don't see that I'm able to deal with something like that. If I ever brought on someone that really wanted to do weddings and that was their specialty, maybe, but I will not be there. I know my limits.
I don't blame you. I've watched enough of that TV show Bridezillas or whatever to know that things can go south quick when you're dealing with the bride and her wedding. So
well, I mean, and I'm just thinking about for my own wedding. The florist put the wrong ribbon on my bouquets, and I came apart. Luckily, she was not there to deal with it.
Yeah.
And my fiance took all the ribbon off all the bouquets, and we just went natural. But I lost it over the ribbon, and so. When you're in that moment, sometimes it's hard to control. I just don't want to be on the other end of that. I don't have to.
I don't blame you, but I do have to think that, and I would like to think that, and I'm sure you would too, that everything with your clients is all sunshine and roses and puppy dogs, right? Sometimes I'm sure things do go wrong where you have to recover and that kind of thing. So because I think there's probably a good lesson in there. How do you deal with recovery and having to make things right that might necessarily have gone wrong? Maybe not through any fault of your own, but just stuff happens.
It happens.
Like you said. So.
Almost every single event, there's going to be something. So this is actually a conversation I was having with someone the other day about recent interns that I've hosted. And I don't want to say in general young people, but that's just what I've dealt with lately.
Yeah, right.
They don't know how to problem solve. If they can't figure it out, if it's not right in front of them, oh, well, I couldn't find that. I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, pick up the phone, dial the numbers, call somebody. They don't know how to problem solve. So to me, one of the best things that we do as a group, we all know how to problem solve. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a way to solve this problem, but, just making it happen, that's what we do. I like it, actually. I think it's fun when you come up with a challenge. It's fun.
Yeah, problem solving is kind of a lost art these days.
Yes.
I see that in my own children, bless them. Sometimes they really can't do that. But anyway, that's a great, but it seriously is a great skill to have. And it's one that
it is.
If people don't have it, they need to develop it because life is full of problems.
It is. It is. So I am, now that I realize how the young ones seem to be, I have an 11-year-old, so I'm trying to make him figure out on his own how to do things. I want to just do it for him because I'm impatient. It's really important that they learn how to fix things on their own.
Important life skill. Let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about, number one, people who you admire, and then maybe get into some mentors and that kind of thing. So your list is interesting because on that list is your former boss, Renee Browning. Yeah. And then you also have Condoleezza Rice and Princess Diana. Now, we've had Condoleezza Rice mentioned before, but now Princess Diana is one I don't think that we have ever had mentioned. So speak a little bit about each of those and why it is that you admire them.
So Princess Di, we'll just go into that about patience. To me, she was one of the most patient people. She was full of grace, and she was dealing with so many things that she could have gotten upset about, and just the way that she handled herself. I always try to strive to be like her. No, I do not come off like that, but you can have somebody you look up to. But that's the reason for Princess Di.
Okay.
So Condoleezza Rice, obviously, because she's an amazing female leader. I guess that was really when I was old enough to start understanding politics. I remember that race, and I remember her coming in and what a big deal it was for her to be an African-American female in the position that she was in, Secretary of State. So I've always admired her. I think she's a great person, and she did a wonderful job, and again, handled herself under stress. I think it's a nice feature to have. So then my former boss. So right out of college, you're looking for someone to be your mentor. And this is when I was at the Civic and Convention Center, and I came in as the marketing manager, and she was the director of sales and marketing. So, just her patience and sitting down and helping me, that's where I've tried to be, is like her, with leading by example and being patient, and then understanding there's more than one way to do things. So she really taught me that. And I've throughout the years tried to continue those. Like I said, I'm not a very patient person, so it takes effort. Also, one of the things that she says that I repeat all the time is surround yourself with stars and you will shine. You're not good at everything. Figure out what you're good at, and then find the other people that are good at the other things. Agreed.
And so you set your team up like that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I very much some people won't admit what they're not good at. I know what I'm not good at, and I admit it very quickly. So I I hire people to do the things I'm not good at.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in self-awareness, and I think that that's one thing that if you look at, this is generalizing here, but if you look at people that you think aren't the best leaders, I think one of the things that they have in common is they're not self-aware.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're not good.
Right.
And so that's a bad combination.
It really is.
So let's talk a little bit about personal growth and development to where you are today. So I know that you've learned things from the time that you started in this business until now, both about yourself and your leadership style. So take me back to maybe what you thought leadership was back when you first started, working, and what you think it is today.
Yeah, it definitely has changed some because my first job, obviously I was right out of college, and it was more of a dictatorship. And that's what I saw, and that's what I thought. So for 3 years, I was at a local agency, and that's how it was managed. So I was like, God, this is how it's going to be. Okay, I guess I can deal with this. Just suppressing kind of your personality and who you are, and just go on and do your job every day. So then I moved over to the Civic and Convention Center, and that's where Renee became my boss. And I saw that shift of like, no, it doesn't have to be like that. And over at the agency, it was a male and a female. So it's not just a male thing. It was not a male world. I don't want to talk bad about men. So I saw the shift happen there. And then for me and my personal growth is throughout the years dealing with things that I couldn't control and testing my patience and just learning how to get through those things and come out better, because you learn from every mistake. You learn from every job. Even jobs I did not care for, I'm like, but you know what? At the time, that's what I needed to do, and I learned so much from that. So now I'm taking that. So everywhere I've been able to take a little piece of that pie and add to my personality of what I'm able to offer today.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I would think, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that being the director of Bayfest, which is Alabama's largest music festival, would kind of test it would kind of test your patience a little bit, and would teach you how to maybe pivot on the go. Because I'm thinking dealing with a bunch of musicians, and I don't know if Johnny's listening or not, but he is listening.
They're the worst.
They get a bad rap sometimes. So how was that, and how did that kind of shape your leadership style and help you? I would imagine develop all kind of patience dealing with those kind of folks.
Yes. So luckily, I had a lot of people that I could depend on for help. Again, I had to be able to be willing to let go and let other people do it their way, because I think I personally, everybody on the board had sections of things that they were in charge of, but I personally managed about 100 volunteers throughout the weekend. So I had to be able to trust people to do what they needed to get done. So it tested my patience. Sometimes people didn't. I had one volunteer one time that physically got thrown out by security.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Everything that you think could happen, happened. It did. But the biggest thing that Bayfest taught me was that I had to depend on other people. I always had really liked to do everything myself because I can trust myself. I know it's going to get done, but I physically couldn't do it all.
Well, you mentioned that several times, the art of delegation, and it really is an art, because if you think that you can do
hard.
it, yeah, it is. And I think producer Carrie can probably agree with us, because I think that producer Carrie struggles with some of the same things that you may, and I do, is that if you know you can do it, you want to do it, and why shouldn't I? Well, okay, I can buy that to an extent, but number one, there's only one of you.
Right.
And then number two, you're not bringing up the people behind you to be able to either, number one, problem solve like we talked about before, or learn an additional skill, or let somebody else do it that may, although you're good at it, they might be better.
Yeah. It is, because when you're really busy, it's going to take you twice as long to explain to someone what you need done.
Right.
But with my team now, they're learning. And then with Bayfest, I was so lucky that people wanted to volunteer year after year. So I didn't have a lot of turnover. So, 5 or 6 years, I would have the same people come volunteer on my team that could be the leaders. And then I could have them have a committee and be in charge of their different sections. So it was very helpful that it was something fun and awesome, and people wanted to come volunteer their whole weekend.
Yeah.
That was easy. But also, it's just one of those things that you live and you learn. But yes, I say that I'm very good at delegating now. One of my team members told me the other day that I was not as good as I thought I was, but I was like, I don't don't know what you're talking about. She's like, well, you follow up behind people. I was like, you have to follow up behind them.
Yeah,
She's like, well, yeah.
There's a difference in follow up and not turning over.
That's right.
Over at all. But anyway,
so I have come a long way.
Yeah.
And you just have to roll with the punches.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing you said, and I think that's where it gets lost sometimes. You mentioned it'll take you twice as long to explain as it does to do it. But I mean, that time that you invest in explaining is going to pay off exponentially the next time.
Right.
And so it's about the end game. It's not necessarily about the here and now. So I think that's a great lesson.
It is. And that's hard sometimes to take the time to do that. That's probably my biggest challenge. We just got a full-time assistant and I need her to learn how to do this or that. And I'm like, I don't have time to teach her how to do that. I'm just going to do it myself at night. But I'm up every night working. Yeah. I'm like, if I should just have taught her how to do this, she'd be doing this right now. So it really is. It's one of those things you have to do.
Yeah. Great lesson. So let's change gears just a little bit again. Give me a podcast or two that you're either listening to, that you listen to, that you enjoy, or that you can give our listeners to we like just give resources that they might not have heard about. So
yeah, and what's so funny is sometimes I can't even remember the names of them. Yeah. So friends send them to me, and I just listen to them. One of the ones I'm listening to right now is Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Okay.
I do all the motivational ones. That's what I like to listen to. I'm a huge Rachel Hollis fan, and she has a podcast. So I kind of go back and forth, but then sometimes I just listen to random things that don't, it's like a series. It's not a podcast, but yeah, that's what I'm listening to right now. Entrepreneurs on Fire. Okay.
Entrepreneurs, let me ask you this. So I know that your stance on leaders born or made, you think that they're born more than anything. Same thing with entrepreneurs? I mean, does that fall in the same line, or do you think somebody can go out there and will themselves to be an entrepreneur?
I think you can.
Really? Okay.
I will say, I don't know that I always desired to have my own company. Uh-huh. It kind of just happened because after Bayfest ended, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no plan. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So I took a job and I was like, this has got to be like what hell is like. I mean, every day I pulled up, like I had this pit in my stomach. Yeah. And I was like, this is not me. And then I was like, where would I want to work? Let me think about where I would want to work. And I'll start looking for a job. And then I'm like, nowhere. Like, I cannot even think of a place that I would want to work. I was like, okay, I've been doing what I'm doing now, like basically for 20 years. Why don't I just take those skills and just open my own?
So it was never really an entrepreneurial itch then that you had to scratch. It was just something that kind of out of necessity. It was like,
I don't want to work for anybody else.
Yeah. Okay.
So I knew that I didn't need to be motivated. Like, I'm not one of those people that you have to motivate me. Mm-hmm. I'm very much motivated every day to do way too much. But it was all of the accounting and hiring and all of those things that I really didn't want to deal with. But all in all, I would still choose what I'm doing now over working for someone. So yeah, I never had like the desire of like, I'm going to work for myself one day. I never thought about it really. Yeah. I loved what I did. So
okay, turned into a pretty good gig though.
Yeah.
We'll link your personal social media and the business as well in show notes. But the website is oystershellstrategy.com. Mm-hmm. That's oystershellstrategy.com. So if folks want to find out more about what you do, they can go visit you there. So one last question before we wrap up. So if you were, as you're driving back down the interstate or however you got here today, and you were forced to stop by a spaceship that landed in the middle of the road.
Wait, you were forced to do what?
Stop by a spaceship that landed in the middle of the road. And
okay, that's what I thought you said.
The little ramp opens, a little alien walks down, comes to your car and says, Shana, take me to your leader. Where do you take him?
Oh, wow. Take me to your leader? Well, I would be like, I can't because he's in heaven. So God is my leader. Okay. And I'll tell you, I have become, I don't want to say a bigger Christian. I've always been a Christian, but I have depended more on my faith since I opened my own business. Mm-hmm. I pray a lot.
Right.
And so far, so good. He's been very good to me. So, yeah, I wouldn't be able to take him anywhere. I'd say, let's have coffee and talk about that.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, Shana, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful insights, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. As always, a big thanks to producer Carrie Wolf and editor Johnny Gwynn. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.